Welcome to Season 3 of the College Admission TV podcast. We explore the fast-changing space of AI, education, and the future of the workforce. In this episode, we're joined by President Irma Becerra of Marymount University.
Welcome to another episode of AI education and the future of workforce. We have with us a very special president of Marymount University, Dr. Irma Becerra. Welcome.
Thank you, JP. Delighted to be here with you. And hello to our audience.
Fantastic. Well, we've known each other for a while, and I've had the pleasure to see how Marymount has grown over the years. Since 2018. You've made an incredible impact. I mean, first of all, your background is very unique among college presidents. You have a full engineering background, and I would like you to talk about that a little bit because it's going to really dovetail into our discussion as far as AI is concerned. But I want to highlight some of the achievements under your leadership. You've really created as you call it, the momentum strategic plan that you have in place. For the first time, Marymount was ranked as a by U.S. and World Report in their ranking. You have basically gained Carnegie classification and have been identified as a research university and an opportunity college. You have also, spearheaded Marymount to become Virginia's first Hispanic serving institutions. With all that, I'll hand it back to you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and also Marymount before we go into our AI discussion, please.
Well, thank you, JP, and thank you again for your kind invitation. So a little bit of my background. First of all, for those that don't know me that well, I was born in Cuba, and my parents had to escape the Cuban Revolution. Castro took all our assets, and I was 8 months old when we escaped communism with my 20-year-old mom and my 23-year-old dad, and we moved to Puerto Rico, and where I grew up until high school, and moved to Miami, and that's where I pursued at the University of Miami my bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering. I went to work for Florida Power and Light, and I was coding the reliability of the power system grid in Fortran, and by happenstance got involved in doing some corporate training, fell in love with adult education, and that gave me the idea to go back to school to get my doctorate and join the professoriate. So it's a little bit of, it was not a direct path, and I think my path to become a university president has taken a lot of different interesting turns. I did a dissertation on secure communications when cybersecurity was not a field. So I was kind of an early aficionado on secure communications. And when I joined the faculty at Florida International University in the College of Business, in the information systems faculty, I really fell in love with an area that was emerging at that time, which is knowledge management. So I became a knowledge management researcher. I publish books. I have a 4th edition on a book on knowledge management, and also research monographs, many journal papers. I did a lot of work for NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, a lot of the pioneering work in knowledge management at one of the premier knowledge organizations. And that was my trajectory for the first 12 years in academia until I became a tenure full professor. Then after that, I took on a number of leadership roles, including center director for Entrepreneurship Center, vice provost at FIU, vice president. I was then a provost at St. Thomas University and in Miami, and then recruited to come to Marymount in 2018. So I've completed my 7th year as the president of Marymount, and delighted that I've been able to really lead Marymount through a significant transformation. And thank you for sharing some of our really very, I'm going to say, impressive accolades that we have earned together. But I'm excited to come to your podcast to talk about AI, because I am a trained researcher in artificial intelligence back in the 90s. So I actually remember coding a neural network model when it would take a long time, even overnight, for you to be able to get results on your neural network model. And so I was given that knowledge management is also an application of intelligent technologies to business. This is a field that I really was enthralled with. So, as when you talk to researchers, they can talk, ad infinitum about their research passion, and knowledge management was and it still continues to be. But I did spend a lot of my years while I was going through tenure and then becoming a full professor in exploring different applications of AI to business. And I do have to tell you, I am so incredibly impressed at what has happened just the last couple of years, because by and large, AI has been adopted by business at the fastest rate that I have seen any other technology being adopted. And one of my earlier understanding of how AI helps knowledge workers, I would describe it, because there's been so many misconceptions about AI, and people, I don't know if you remember the movie Space Odyssey 2001, right? When how the computer takes over the world, and a lot of people have a lot of fear about AI. And the way that I would explain it, because oftentimes people would ask me about it, is AI is to our brains what the eyeglasses are to our eyes. They enabling us to understand better or understand faster. So it's never intended to eliminate the expert from the equation, but to give the expert tools so that, these are cognitive tools, so the expert can be more efficient about doing what they're doing. So, and that's the way I came to understand it, and that's the way that I like to explain it to others, because as you know, there's a lot of always the fear of the unknown, and with every technological transformation that we have witnessed, there's always that group of people that say, "Oh my God, AI is going to turn around and kill us one day," and I don't think that that's an imminent danger whatsoever. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, I have so many questions, but podcasts unfortunately won't allow us to cover them, just because all the work that Marymount has done just in the past few years. And you've definitely shepherded the university through COVID and very uncertain times at the same time have grown. But let's start with this. How do you perceive the impact of AI on the future of workforce over the coming 5 years?
Yes. Well, maybe I will just say for the next 2-3 years, because things happen really quickly, JP. But
Yeah.
I was the other day listening to a presentation, a great presentation from a consultant, and it's interesting that he was sharing that when he came to work for this consulting firm, the first reaction, and that may have been only like 2-3 years ago, the first reaction was, "We are not going to use AI here. AI is bad." And it had essentially been banned. And I think that many institutions, we actually went through that period at Marymount where we say, well, AI is being used for cheating. So we don't want our students to use AI because students are cheating. We're cheating them of the opportunity for learning. And we have at Marymount, just like at that consulting firm, they've gone through a period of exploration and reflection and rethinking what is our responsibility as educators, and that is to prepare our students that are going to graduate next May to be not only AI literate, but also to know how their particular disciplines are being transformed as we speak by AI tools. So our employers are going to be expecting that as students are coming out of, let's say, the education arena, they're going to be ready to first day jump in to how they can do their jobs that they were educated to do, but even do whatever it is that they're currently working on at a faster pace. And I think it's really interesting because some employers actually have decided that they're going to reduce the number of entry-level employees because they want to push through the organization, higher productivity. I think that this is an interesting goal. In particular, every industry, of course, is facing some increases in costs around everything that we do. Some of it driven by inflation, tariffs, and other external forces. But I think it's important that we don't lose sight that we need to continue to prepare the students that are, you need to have some entry-level workforce that can mature into the more experienced workforce. But there is going to be that expectation that as students that are graduating from university today are going to be able to use these jobs so that they can be most productive on the first day that they start work. In addition to that, as a values-based institution, we also understand that in an AI-powered world, our students at Marymount also need to understand what are some of the ethical issues around AI. They need to be ethical creators, critical thinkers, agile leaders, and the whole idea is not for them to take shortcuts when they are preparing a work product that they validate, because as we know, even though ChatGPT or other AI tools are getting better with new versions being released, they're still not perfect. And we still need to have the expert in between, just like I mentioned before, with a cognitive prosthesis validating the results. Here at Marymount in fall of 23, we launched a brand new bachelor's degree in AI. And, those students that are taking that bachelor's degree are taking topics like machine learning, robotics, natural language processing. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, grappling with those questions of ethics, trust, bias. They all are required to complete an internship, a senior capstone, so that they have that experience that employers are expecting them to have when they graduate from college, and also embedding AI literacy in traditional STEM majors so that regardless of the program, Marymount students can learn and understand about neural networks, robotics, the impact of automation, biases on society, and we have different classes that are designed to give students that foundational knowledge, even as undergraduates.
Well, of course, universities are also major employers. And, as an employer at Plexus, one of the areas that we've noticed, and I'm wondering if you're also experiencing the same thing, and other CEOs that I've spoken with as well, and leaders in the industry, is there seems to be a period of AI recalibration, meaning that how do we, I mean, everyone is actually working harder and not less because of AI productivity. Our employees' output has increased tremendously by high percentage. As we're learning, how do we couple, this recalibration? There's probably going to be a recalibration, not a lot of hiring, and then these new roles that are going to be created. And then there might be a swing in hiring. We've seen these in other areas as well. So there's a lot of talks about graduates not finding jobs, but I'm wondering if this is the recalibration dip that we're experiencing at the moment. Again, this is my own back of the napkin theory, but what's your thought about that?
Yeah, I agree with you because there's going to be a lot of move in the market, and we have seen, as you know, the current trend, the today's trend is that the people that have that are experienced AI researchers are getting incredible job offers, while the entry level computer scientists are, maybe there's the expectation that you don't need to hire them, that the AI tools are going to generate the code for you automatically. Well, listen, I was a programmer in Fortran, and I personally learned how to code like the Intel chips using hexadecimal code. So I am so jealous of all the tools that are available today, because it used to take us forever to write a little program. Remember, JP? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
You just had to say hello
Oh my
world,
gosh.
hello world. It took forever for us to learn how to write the little program hello world. And now, it takes zero time, because, if you ask ChatGPT, it will produce the code in any specific language that you want, that produces the output hello world. I was reminded just the other day that when I started studying electrical engineering and computer science at the University of Miami, we were still using cards, and the university had bought a line editor, but it was kind of use it at your own risk. So I remember that I decided, well, I'm going to learn how to use this line editor, because it takes a long time to do the cards, and if you drop the cards, then you have to start over again. And it was sort of like use it at your own risk. So you have to invest your own time into learning how to use the line editor, which is sort of like nowadays a lot of knowledge workers are investing their own time to really maximize the use of the any of the AI tools that are available there. And then some companies that are progressive are investing in educating or upskilling their workforce so that they can rapidly learn how to use those tools and be more efficient. And we are actually doing that here at Marymount. So this entire academic year, I'm planning a series of workshops so that we can upskill our own faculty and staff into some of the tools that we've made initial investments in, from Copilot to any of the GPT platforms, so that we can help our faculty and staff be more efficient and more effective, how to write their own chatbots for the work that they're doing. Whenever they see that they're always answering the same question over and over, that maybe this is an opportunity that they could maximize their time. So I feel like just like that consulting firm that used to think, AI is bad, and now they're investing in upskilling their own employees. I think if you're not doing it right now as a company or as a university, this is a moment that you should be doing it, because the adoption of AI has been the fastest that has ever happened before. As we, as a different technology revolutions have presented themselves. So, yeah, so we need to start, running, because it's going to be important to keep up with the pace of what's going on right now.
Yes, certainly AI literacy is a big priority, I think, at all levels. So what do you need to do on top of the AI literacy to educate students for careers that are emerging? So some, as students, we always end up going into jobs that we never predicted. I mean, you were an electrical engineer and now you're a university president. I was a philosophy major and became an entrepreneur. I mean, that happens all the time. But with AI, this is even more fluid in terms of jobs that may not exist or they're evolving. So how do we educate and equip students in this fast-moving AI world?
Yeah, very good question. And like I mentioned to you before, we have launched this bachelor's program in AI, but I think it's also important that you think across the entire university, not only the technical students, but we're also offering, say, minors. We're offering a minor in artificial intelligence and robotics for that is available not only for our computer science, IT, cybersecurity students, but also for students that are not technology majors. So, and I think that that's where, we have a new course called AI, Trust, Bias, and Societal Impacts that is to help students understand the power and responsibility of these technologies. So we want students, philosophy students like you, JP, or maybe you're a political science students, to also be exposed to these courses and these minors. We are also at the graduate level, for example, launching a certificate, a graduate certificate that could be, say, part of your MBA, which is on applied AI, and also because no matter what master's degree you're studying, you may want to have a little bit, maybe it's like 9 to 12 credits of specific aspects of AI that are important for everyone. So it could be maybe you're a doctorate in education and you want to take this certificate in AI because you're going to be a leader in education and you want to have some basic knowledge on how AI is going to transform your field. So I think AI is, again, transformative for not only in a field like computer science, and we certainly have to think, how are we going to teach computer science differently to our students? Because computer science is not all about coding, but which is one aspect that AI is having a huge impact. But say we have a bachelor's in digital writing and narrative design that combines storytelling, multimedia production, and digital fluency. And all these fields are also being really transformed as we speak by AI. So I think it's important that we understand that AI, we used to talk about digital natives. I think our students are now AI natives, and AI has to be part of the curriculum, not only of the technical degrees, but also non-technical degrees like philosophy, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly. I mean, if you look at a major in philosophy, where you have to read all of these books and data points, but now if you feed it and you're looking for certain themes, let's say, the difference between empirical, philosophy and analytical philosophy, and it gives you some understanding, but the human touch is a very different extrapolation of that thought process. So, are you now? I am astounded as the number of professors that you have and the programs that you have in Marymount. So, for example, you have Dr. Nathan Green, who works on NLP and machine learning. You have Dr. Michelle Liu, who studies on ethics and government. Dr. Katrina Nesfit on automating and hiring process. Dr. Murphy on AI bias and mitigation, and Dr. Conrad, Dr. Hall. And you've also launched as you mentioned, BS in AI, a minor in AI and robotics, a certification. Is this part of strategies that, and when did you start this, by the way, to strategies to address the AI impact on student career readiness? Is that accidental, or was it very intentful for all of this to happen and have this rich number of faculty as part of your university?
Well, when we launched our strategic plan in 2018, we did set a vision to become, at that time, Marymount was ranked 57th in the region. And, I drew a lot of inspiration from the work of Collins, Good to Great.
Yes.
And so I don't know, because I don't know if you remember, JP, but we spoke about momentum, which is the name of the strategic plan back then. And one of the things that we set out to do is we set the goal that we wanted to be nationally ranked, and we wanted to be recognized because of we have an innovative curriculum, we have faculty and staff prominence, and we have an attention to student success. So there was a framework built around this desire that is not only my desire, because I'm the president, but this cannot work if it's the president. It's the desire of the faculty, it's the desire of the staff, it's the desire of our board, it's the desire of our community that Marymount be known by having an innovative curriculum. So with that, we set the goal, and we put the structure in place, and we got to work. And as you know, universities are not necessarily known for turning on a dime, and I'm going to say that we probably have turned on a quarter, not on a dime. And I think that's as good as we can go. You have to set the expectation, because we do have structures in place that sometimes I think it feels a little bit like a cha-cha, right? You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I call it the academic cha-cha. But I'm certainly proud that I have faculty, all the names that you have mentioned, that they have really embraced the flywheel in the momentum, and they're turning the flywheel. And we have been able to be first to market with many of these degrees. By the way, our cybersecurity program was one of the first to market in our region. We continue to excel by our health programs. We have a nursing program that dates back to the 60s, and the faculty that are in my health areas are working just as hard to be proactive with innovation, simulation, and the use of AI. You mentioned, for example, Nathan Green. He is a professor in the technology group that is working closely with our faculty in health to develop tools to help screen patients for symptoms of Alzheimer's disease by and I think it's Diaz Asper that is working with Nathan, by detecting changes in the speech patterns. So we are, I think one of the interesting things that are happening at Marymount that is quite unique is that we have created structures that not only allow, but that support interdisciplinary collaboration, which is where the big breakthroughs are going to be happening. And while many universities, I think, are structured and in a way that I'm going to call them, they are collection of colleges, and there's this, silo mentality and really thick walls, I'm going to say, around colleges. We at Marymount, and I think we talked about that years ago, we did away with the concept of the departments because departments were creating a lot of rigidity. And we structured, we used to have 4 schools, and I think it was something like 26 departments, and some departments had 1 chair and 1 faculty. And we restructured into 3 colleges and 10 interdisciplinary schools. So the change in structure is one of the things that has not only permitted but encouraged this flow of ideas where 2 faculty of 2 different fields are working together to really accomplish some breakthroughs in some important areas.
There's always corporate restructuring, so it's great to hear about higher education restructuring as well. And going back to the 2 to 5 year trajectory, which now seems like in analog terms, it almost seems like 200 to 500 years. But
that's what it feels like, JP. 500 years, yeah.
What industries do you anticipate being most affected, redefined, or created as a result of AI?
I have to say that all industries. Initially, I know that there was a lot of interest to when you were thinking about AI in areas, for example, that were dangerous, right, for human beings. And you can think, the application of robotics to, say, dangerous underwater exploration, or maybe underwater welding that was replaced by robots because you want to minimize human loss. We've seen it in warfare. Unfortunately, we've seen it recently with more unmanned or unwomaned the ability for war fighting that doesn't require a person on board, right? And I think these were some early adoptions because we wanted to continue these very risky jobs where it wouldn't impact a human life. But then also the application of AI in areas that are very complex. And we know that years ago, when I was a computer programmer as an undergraduate and working for the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Hurricane Research Lab, the meteorologists would be trying to figure out the path of a hurricane by looking at these columns of ones and zeros of these infinitesimal numbers that really describe the hurricane path, because that's before we had visualization, right? Well, now we can see pretty maps of where the hurricane is likely to go and a cone of uncertainty. The early models were just producing columns of very small numbers, and I know that because I was coding that for my meteorologist boss, Dr. Jones, who created one of those models. So, and this was me a few years ago, right? I mean, what we have seen in terms of the computer's ability to now visualize data in a different way, automatically tell you there's a relationship between these products that you're putting in your, when you go to the store, there's a relationship with these products that you buy together. So why don't we put these products together? So one of the earlier examples were Pampers and beer. Well, why would there be a correlation between purchasing Pampers and beer? Well, if you're a young dad and you're sent to go to the grocery store, in the evening, you're not going out because you're babysitting, well, you might as well also carry a 6-pack home with the Pampers. So maybe this is an idea for us to put the Pampers and the beer together. And this is a true example from data mining, which is also AI. But to answer to your question, the short answer is every field will be changed. And of course, we'll see, unfortunately, those jobs today that are well paid, that do not require a college degree, will be the first to go. And we're already seeing the impact of driverless vehicles. And it's important for an audience to know that the number one occupation in the United States is driver. So
Hmm.
that occupation is quickly going away because driverless vehicles are a reality already today. So I think as a society, as we have been telling our young people, oh, maybe a college degree is no longer necessary, I think it's important that we are honest with ourselves that those highly paid jobs that exist today that do not require a college degree are quickly going to disappear. And we need to be responsible with our young minds and make sure that they develop to their full potential because every job is going to change.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about, the number of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, even 18 wheelers and freight drivers and what have you, you're looking at the millions of jobs and customer service jobs, even some jobs in retail and what have you. So it's coming fast. And as you think about educating the future workforce as a university, are you maybe having think about different industries? What barriers, for example, do you think certain regulations might have in utilizing AI? And I'm referring to, HIPAA in healthcare, or SEC regulation in financials, or FERPA regulations. Do you think some of those barriers are going to slow down the advent of AI in certain industries?
That's a really good question, JP. I'm gonna have to think about that. As you know, well, our audience know that FERPA is a lot about who has access to the information about our students.
Hmm.
And as an educator, I'm constantly educating parents and letting them know if you want to be able to ask me questions about how your beautiful son or daughter is performing, your handsome son or your beautiful daughter is performing, if they're going to class or not, or what's going on, what are they doing in the weekend, you better have a FERPA form signed, because otherwise I need to assume that they're adults and I'm not going to be able to share that information with you. And for all of us that are educators, we have had that difficult conversation with our parents many times. So the education sector, a lot of people that are not in the education sector do not understand that the education sector is very regulated. And that also adds to the cost of
Hmm.
what we do. And when we often face the criticism on how education is increasing costs so much over the years, a lot of it has been driven by increased regulations. So this question about how do these two areas, regulation and AI, meet, to be honest, is I haven't given that a lot of thought. And I think that this would be a good idea for us to ask our listeners
Hmm.
to give us their thoughts on how are they thinking that these two areas are, they seem to be parallel, but they will be colliding somewhere. And where are they going to be colliding? Is it in around legal, ethical concerns? The the possibility for could it be profiling, where you know when I sometimes, for example, on the topic of college, I shared with you at the beginning of our talk that I'm an immigrant, that my family came from Cuba when I was a baby. And, when I hear people say, well, college is not for everybody, and I think about, well, who's it not for? Who is that person that is not good enough for college? And I, wonder, could it have been me as an immigrant? Parents were poor. When it came time for me to go to college, I had to work. I had to get Pell Grants. I got loans, scholarships. I put myself through college. Would I have been one that somebody would say, well, Irma, college is really not for you? And instead I lean in to college, because what I did learn from my parents' experience is that no one can ever take away your education. And that's a little bit of my message out there to our young minds. So I think, we need to be cognizant that there may be biases in AI models, and we need to make sure that we give every student that comes to our universities the opportunity for success, to be successful, and not let anything, I've heard many students that had to deal with learning disabilities when they came to college, and they persisted and they overcame them. So I'm a little bit worried about, how these things will play in, and then also regulation. So I think that this is still an area for us to try to maybe get some ideas from our listeners, and maybe we can revisit this specific point.
And it's a difficult, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, I think that my last podcast was with recently a retired president, with Nora Demlitner, who's actually a legal scholar. We talked about predictive policing and criminal justice, and forensics, and what's involved there. It's because it's such a big field. We could see a completely new regulatory environment being created around AI, and basically agents, and how we actually interoperate as a society with it, and what the guardrails are going to be. So I think this is definitely, I pose that question knowing that there's no perfect answer to it, but just to explore, because I think as we train our, so for example, people in healthcare, right? Your institution is around our healthcare. So you might be using AI internally as far as being able to communicate, but the external portion might be a little bit more latent as these new regulations kind of take hold, because the biggest part of regulation, as you know, is the standardization. Yes. And being able to make it universal. Regulation cannot be based on, my whims, but it has to apply, within a state to state, nationally and globally, such as privacy laws. So I think the next 2 to 5 years, we're probably going to build a lot of infrastructure around these regulations, so it could become much more ubiquitous to use. I guess one, I guess I have a lot of questions, but I think if I had to pick one, this is the one I would pick. And we'll as my conclusive question. So it's my favorite question, which is, you discussed this aptly at the beginning of the podcast. We have never seen a technology disrupt our workforce. Not the Industrial Revolution, not electricity, not phone, not internet, to the degree it is doing that. Now, for folks like you who've been following AI history since the early 50s, it was never consumerized as it has post-GPT. So that is really, I don't know, is post-chat GPT versus pre-chat, it became available to everyone. Mm-hmm. The biggest question I have is, do we have enough run rate to recalibrate and put 120 million Americans who don't even have a college degree back into these new roles in time, and not go through some social unrest? Because we know eventually we'll pick up, but in the next 2 to 10 years, how do you see this evolving?
Wow. JP, you certainly saved the hardest question for last. I think, well, I have a lot more questions than you, JP. We have today 7-year-olds that are already adept at GPT. And, they have the parents, they have the schools, and then, of course, you have a lot of young minds that are not necessarily, because their parents or their schools are not preparing them. So remember we used to talk about the digital divide. I think there's going to be an even deeper divide around intelligence tools. And the number one. Number two, these tools are not perfect. So, and I have used GPT. I am quite impressed, by the way, by the results as I have played with it. But oftentimes I catch it making mistakes. And I know that maybe in the future there'll be less mistakes, but there will still, again, back to my analogy, is a cognitive processes for the expert to use to be more productive. But we are not going to see elimination of the expert from the equation. So if you have people that don't have the expertise and are relying on the tools blindly, with having the proper background, is sort of like what happens nowadays when you have an exchange of text between two people without the context. And that can go wrong really fast.
Exactly.
So I think, and I love that you use a concept that I used for a long time from my days as a knowledge management expert. You don't know what you don't know. And when you're interacting with a GPT or any AI tool, and you don't have the expertise to understand the context, to validate the answer, to question if there's an ethical bias, to question, what information I'm looking at. Remember, we used to say in computer science, garbage in, garbage out. There was an interesting study that correlated the hems of the ladies' skirts with the stock market. And, fashion industry, the hems go up, the hems go down. Today I'm wearing a long dress because maxi dresses are in. So does that mean that when hems go down, stock market goes down? Well, actually, someone did that experiment a long time ago, and they found a correlation, but that was not a causation. So This is, again, we need to make sure we focus on educating our young minds more than ever, the value of the college degree, because we don't want to create a big disparity in those that have the opportunity to be AI native and those that really do not have the ability to enter into that world. So that's what I'm saying. Again, it's time for us to dispel the myth that college is not for everybody, and it has to be each one of us, in particular those of us that have a passion for education, to continue to say that we need to continue to educate our young minds into the college degree, not only to prepare them for careers that we don't know, but it is the essence of our democracy and economic mobility for all.
President Becerra, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, JP. Looking forward to continue our conversations.
Likewise.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.